Day 6. Mains answer writing. Same-sex marriage is a controversial and sensitive issue in India, where different religious and cultural norms shape the views and expectations of marriage. How can same-sex marriage be legalized and recognized in India without violating the religious and cultural sentiments of the majority population? Current legal and social situation of LGBTQ people in India. India has a long and diverse history of LGBTQ culture and expression, dating back to ancient times. However, colonialism and modernization have eroded some of the traditional acceptance and tolerance of LGBTQ people in India. For a long time, LGBTQ people faced criminalization, discrimination, stigma and violence in India. In 2018, the Supreme Court of India decriminalized consensual same-sex relationships by reading down Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which was a relic of the British colonial rule. This was a historic and landmark judgment that affirmed the constitutional rights of LGBTQ people to equality, dignity, privacy and expression. The court also recognized the right of transgender people to self-identify their gender identity and register themselves under a third gender. However, decriminalization does not mean legalization or recognition. LGBTQ people in India still face many legal and social barriers to access basic rights and services, such as marriage, adoption, inheritance, healthcare, education and employment. Same-sex couples have no legal protection or recognition for their relationships, which affects their ability to cohabit, open joint bank accounts, cover their spouse as part of their insurance, or adopt children. They also face social ostracism, harassment, violence and family pressure to conform to heteronormative expectations. In 2023, the Supreme Court of India heard oral arguments in a case on legalizing same-sex marriage. More than a dozen petitioners are asking the court for the same rights granted to heterosexual couples under various personal laws or the Special Marriage Act. The opposition to same-sex marriage comes from religious groups and the Indian government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which says it recognizes many forms of relationships but views legal marriage as an arrangement between a man and a woman. The court has reserved its judgment, but a ruling could come in the weeks ahead. Possible ways to legalize and recognize same-sex marriage in India. There are different ways to approach the issue of same-sex marriage in India, depending on the legal framework and the social context. Here are some possible ways. Judicial activism. The Supreme Court of India could rule in favor of same-sex marriage by interpreting the constitutional rights of LGBTQ people broadly and expansively. The court could strike down or read down any law that discriminates against same-sex couples or denies them equal protection under the law. The court could also direct the government to enact a law that recognizes same-sex marriage or amend existing laws to include same-sex couples. This would be similar to how the court decriminalized same-sex relationships in 2018. Legislative reform. The Parliament of India could pass a law that recognizes same-sex marriage or amend existing laws to include same-sex couples. This would require political will and support from various parties and stakeholders. The law could be based on a secular or a pluralistic model. A secular model would create a uniform civil code that applies to all citizens regardless of their religion or personal law. A pluralistic model would allow different religious or personal laws to coexist and accommodate same-sex couples within their own frameworks. Social dialogue. The civil society, media, academia, religious leaders, celebrities and other influential figures could engage in a constructive dialogue with the public on the issue of same-sex marriage. They could raise awareness, educate, sensitize and mobilize public opinion in favor of same-sex marriage. They could also challenge stereotypes, myths and prejudices against LGBTQ people and promote diversity, inclusion and respect for human rights. Benefits and challenges of legalizing same-sex marriage in India. Legalizing same-sex marriage in India would have many benefits for LGBTQ people as well as for society at large. Some of these benefits are: legal protection. Same-sex couples would have legal recognition and protection for their relationships. They would be able to access various rights and benefits that are available to heterosexual couples, such as inheritance, property, taxation, healthcare, insurance, adoption etc. Social acceptance. Same-sex couples would have social recognition and acceptance for their relationships. They would be able to live openly and freely without fear of discrimination, stigma or violence. They would also be able to participate in social and cultural events and rituals that celebrate their relationships. Psychological well-being. Same-sex couples would have psychological well-being and happiness for their relationships. They would be able to express their love and commitment to each other without shame or guilt. They would also be able to cope better with stress, depression, anxiety and other mental health issues that affect LGBTQ people. Human rights. Same-sex couples would have human rights and dignity for their relationships. They would be able to enjoy the fundamental rights of equality, liberty, privacy and expression that are guaranteed by the Constitution of India. They would also be able to contribute to the development and progress of the nation as equal citizens. However, legalizing same-sex marriage in India would also face many challenges and obstacles. Some of these challenges are: legal complexity. India has a complex legal system that is based on a combination of common law, statutory law, constitutional law, customary law and personal law. There are different laws that govern marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption etc. for different religious and cultural groups. Legalizing same-sex marriage would require harmonizing these laws or creating a new law that applies to all citizens. Social resistance. India has a diverse and conservative society that is influenced by various religious and cultural norms and values. Many people view marriage as a sacred and heteronormative institution that is essential for procreation and social stability. Legalizing same-sex marriage would challenge these norms and values and provoke resistance and backlash from various sections of society. Political opposition. India has a polarized and competitive political system that is dominated by various parties and ideologies. Many political parties and leaders oppose same-sex marriage on the grounds of religion, culture, morality or national identity. Legalizing same-sex marriage would require political consensus and compromise among various parties and stakeholders. Conclusion. Same-sex marriage is a controversial and sensitive issue in India that requires a careful and balanced approach. Legalizing same-sex marriage in India would have many benefits for LGBTQ people as well as for society at large, but it would also face many challenges and obstacles from various legal, social and political factors. The Supreme Court of India has a crucial role to play in deciding the fate of same-sex marriage in India, but it is not the only actor or solution. A broader societal dialogue and engagement is needed to create a more inclusive and respectful environment for LGBTQ people in India.